Generation 2 just dropped, and it broke the arena meta wide open. If you thought you had your formation figured out from Gen 1, congratulations, half of what you knew is now outdated. 3 brand new heroes just entered the roster, and every single one of them landed in S tier. Not 1, not 2, all 3. That almost never happens in games like this, and it completely reshuffles which formations dominate and which ones get left behind. But here is the thing that is going to catch a lot of players off guard. Amadeus did not leave the meta. He is still sitting comfortably in S tier, but his role has completely changed. The hero you spent months building as your backline damage carry is now functioning as a frontline meat shield in certain formations. And if that sentence just made your brain short-circuit, good, because that means you need this video. Today, I am giving you the complete Generation 2 arena and Conquest tier list for Kingshot. Every formation, every position, every hero placement explained. I am covering who dominates, who dropped off, which Gen 1 heroes still hold their ground, and one weird formation variant that almost nobody is running yet that can crack Conquest stages you have been stuck on for days. What is up, everyone? This is Bull OP Strategy, and welcome back to the channel. If you missed my Generation 1 tier list, go watch that first. Link is in the description. A lot of the foundational concepts I covered there still apply, and I am not going to repeat all of them today. Same ground rules from that video carry over. Equal investment assumed across heroes, front and back line specified, but left and right positioning is flexible, and expedition mode is still the primary driver for deciding which heroes to build long term. Now, the 3 new heroes entering the arena in Generation 2 are Zoe, Marlon, and Hild. And before we get into formations, let me quickly explain why each of them matters. Zoe is the hero everyone should have. She comes from the roulette wheel, which means free-to-play players and spenders alike will be building her. She is an infantry hero with genuine frontline durability. For the first time since Howard, we have a purple tier accessible tank that can actually hold a front line in competitive arena. That changes everything for budget formations. Marlon is the backline threat that Gen 1 was desperately missing. He brings area of effect damage combined with an AoE stun. That combination is absurd. Damage and crowd control in a single ability means he is doing 2 jobs at once. He also has an exceptional expedition kit, which means building him is not just an arena investment. It pays off across your entire account. Hild is the first true healer that actually matters in arena. Her healing output is substantial enough to keep your frontline alive through exchanges that would have killed them in Gen 1. She also brings minor disruption on top of the healing, which means she is not just a passive support sitting in the back doing nothing between heals. She is actively making life harder for the enemy team while keeping yours alive. Now that you know who these heroes are, let us talk about what happens when you put them together. S tier. The formations that are running arena right now. Generation 2 S tier is stacked. All 3 new heroes make an appearance here, and Amadeus remains firmly in the mix thanks to his higher base stats and incredible moveset. The man simply refuses to become irrelevant. Your primary S tier formation puts Helga and either Hild or Zoe on the front line with Jabel, Marlon, and Amadeus filling out the remaining spots. The reason this works so well is the layering of crowd control. Helga brings her stun. Marlon brings his AoE stun. Jabel brings her AoE stun. You are chain stunning the enemy team so frequently that their heroes barely get abilities off. While they are locked down, your damage dealers are free casting into a team that cannot fight back. It is suffocating to play against. Now here is where it gets interesting. There is a formation in S tier where Amadeus moves to the front line. I know. I spent the entire Gen 1 video telling you to never put Amadeus on the front line. And in Gen 1, that was absolutely correct. But Generation 2 changed the equation. When you are running Hild's healing and Marlon's AoE stun in the same formation, you no longer need Amadeus to be your primary damage source. Hild keeps the front line alive. Marlon locks enemies down and deals massive area damage. Jabel adds her own stun and damage. In this setup, Amadeus transitions from a damage carry into a meat shield. His high base stats and large health pool make him surprisingly effective as a frontline wall, and because the rest of your team is handling damage and crowd control, it does not matter that his damage output is reduced from taking hits. He is absorbing punishment, so your actual damage dealers do not have to. This is a completely different way to use Amadeus than anything we saw in Gen 1, and it works because the Gen 2 heroes around him are strong enough to carry the offensive load without him. Now, let me tell you about a variant formation that most players have not discovered yet. There is a setup where you put Amadeus and Helga on the front line together with Zoe in the back right position. This sounds wrong. Why would you put Zoe in the back? She is a tank. But here is what happens. Zoe's ability timing syncs up so that she fires right before Marlin. Her ability repositions and disrupts the enemy formation, and then Marlin's AoE stun lands immediately after on a team that just got shuffled out of position. The result is devastatingly effective. Enemies get displaced, then immediately stunned. Then your damage dealers clean up. And there is a second benefit to Zoe being in the back right specifically. The back right position naturally draws some aggro from enemy abilities. Zoe's tankiness means she can absorb that damage without going down, protecting your squishier backline heroes like Marlin and Jabel. She is functioning as a backline bodyguard while also setting up Marlin's stun. It is a creative use of positioning that turns a seemingly wrong placement into a tactical advantage. If you are stuck on a Conquest stage that feels impossible with standard formations, try this variant. It has cracked stages for players on my server that they could not beat with conventional setups. One more S-tier positioning tip. When you are running both Marlin and Jabel, put Marlin in the back left safety slot and Jabel closer to the middle or right. Why? Because Jabel has a tendency to march forward and get into the brawl. She drifts toward the fight. Marlin stays planted at the back line where he belongs. If you put Jabel in the safety slot, she wastes it by walking out of it anyway. Give the protected position to the hero who will actually stay there. A tier. Strong formations with missing pieces. A tier in Generation 2 features a lot of the new heroes but is missing one or two key components that make the S-tier formations click so perfectly. Maybe you have Marlin and Zoe, but no Hild. Maybe you have Hild and Zoe, but no Marlin. You have most of the Gen 2 roster, but not the complete package. The good news is that a tier in Gen 2 leans on some of the tricks from Gen 1 formations to fill those gaps, and the result is surprisingly close in effectiveness to S tier. If you are in a tier, you are still winning the majority of your arena matches against anyone who is not running a full S tier setup. The key to making A-tier formations work is understanding which Gen 1 hero best fills the gap left by whichever Gen 2 hero you are missing. Missing Marlin's AoE stun? Helga's stun plus Jabel's crowd control can partially compensate, though you lose the raw area damage Marlin provides. Missing Hild's healing? You need to lean harder into crowd control to prevent damage in the first place, rather than healing through it. More stuns means enemies deal less damage, which means you need less healing. Missing a strong frontline tank? Howard from Gen 1 is still perfectly serviceable here. He has not fallen off as dramatically as some players think. The distance between A tier and S tier in Generation 2 is smaller than it was in Generation 1. In Gen 1, the gap between having Helga and Amadeus versus not having them was enormous. In Gen 2, the new heroes are strong individually, but the formation synergies are what push things into S tier. If you have most of the pieces, you are genuinely close. B tier. 1 Gen 2, hero plus Zoe. B tier is what you get when you are building one Gen 2 hero besides Zoe. And since everyone should have Zoe from the roulette wheel, the question becomes which other Gen 2 hero did you invest in? If you went with Marlin, your B-tier formation is stronger on the damage and crowd control side. Marlin's AoE stun combined with his high damage output gives your formation a backline threat that Gen 1 formations never had access to. Pair him with Zoe and Howard on the front line, add Jabel and your best remaining damage dealer in the back, and you have a formation that can compete with A-tier on a good day. If you went with Hild, your B-tier formation is more durable, but potentially lacks the burst damage to finish fights quickly. Hild keeps your frontline alive through extended exchanges, which is fantastic for Conquest, where fights can drag on. In Arena, the concern is that your damage dealers from Gen 1 might not have enough output to close out fights before the opponent's abilities overwhelm your sustain. Here is the reality of B tier. More players are going to find themselves in the Marlin configuration than the Hild configuration. The reason is simple. Marlin's expedition kit is exceptional. It provides strong incentive to build him beyond just his arena value. Players following the golden rule of prioritizing expedition returns when choosing which heroes to build will naturally gravitate toward Marlin. Hild is a phenomenal hero, but her expedition contribution does not match Marlin's, which means she tends to get built second. If you are a free-to-play player deciding between Marlin and Hilde as your first Gen 2 investment after Zoe, go Marlin. Your expedition returns will thank you, and your arena formation will be more than competitive at B tier while you save for Hilde. C tier, the free-to-play foundation that still holds up. C tier in Generation 2 is actually better than C tier in Generation 1, and the reason is Zoe. For the first time, free-to-play players have access to a real infantry tank from the roulette wheel. No lucky pulls needed. No spending required. Everyone gets her. Your C tier formation puts Zoe and Howard together on the front line. 2 proper infantry tanks holding the wall. Behind them, you are running Gen 1 damage dealers. Jabel, Diana, Chenko, Quinn, whoever you have built from the purple tier. And here is why this formation still holds up reasonably well, even against Gen 2 heroes. Every Gen 2 hero except Zoe has the same base defense stats as Gen 1 heroes. That means your Gen 1 damage dealers are hitting Gen 2 heroes for roughly the same damage they were dealing before. Your damage output in relative terms has not fallen off a cliff just because new heroes arrived. You are not suddenly tickling the enemy. Your attacks still hurt. Obviously, you are at a disadvantage against S and A tier formations. The crowd control chains, the healing, the synergies those formations have will eventually overwhelm a C tier setup. But for daily arena climbing and conquest progression, C tier Gen 2 is a legitimate working formation that costs you nothing beyond the Gen 1 investments you have already made, plus Zoe from the roulette. If you are free to play and sitting in C tier right now, do not feel like you are falling behind. You are building your foundation. Save your resources, build toward Marlin as your next Gen 2 investment, and the moment you get him online, you jump straight to B tier. That is a clear progression path that does not require spending a single gem on hero pulls. All right, rapid fire recap time. S tier requires all 3 Gen 2 heroes, plus Amadeus and Helga to reach full potential. Amadeus can move to frontline as a meat shield when Hilde and Marlin cover damage and crowd control. Try the Zoe back right variant if you are stuck on Conquest stages. Put Marlin in the back, left safety slot because Jabel will walk out of it. A tier is Gen 2 heroes with 1 or 2 pieces missing. Fill gaps with Gen 1 heroes, surprisingly close to S tier in effectiveness. B tier is Zoe plus 1 other Gen 2 hero. Marlin configuration is more common and arguably stronger for most players. C tier is Zoe and Howard frontline with Gen 1 damage dealers, still competitive, because Gen 2 defense stats match Gen 1. If this tier list helped you figure out where your roster stands in the Gen 2 meta, crush that like button. Every single like pushes this video to more Kingshot players who are struggling with the same formation questions you had 5 minutes ago. If you are new here and you want tier lists, formation guides, and strategy breakdowns every single week, subscribe and hit the bell. And drop a comment below telling me which tier you are currently sitting in and which Gen 2 hero you are building first. I want to know what the community is prioritizing so I can make the next tier list even more targeted. This is Bull OP Strategy signing off. See you in the next one.